And thanks for watching Morning Live. Let's move our focus now to the Free State. And as promised before the break, we cross now to our reporter Thabiso, who's in Bloemfontein and, of course, outside the Magistrate's Court there in anticipation of that appearance this morning by ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule. Thabiso, good morning. So we understand it's been a hive of activity since last night. You had supporters of the Secretary-General Ace Magashule. So they were supposed to have a vigil there. Not sure how that went, with curfew, lockdown restrictions all in place. Please give us a sense of what's happening. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Sakina. Good morning, the viewers at home. Yes, of course, we're coming to you live just outside the Magistrate here in Bloemfontein, the Bloemfontein Magistrate Court. The street that we are in, it's President Brandt. This is where the Magistrate Court is situated. But today, Sakina, the situation is different to what we see every day. Normally at this time, people are going about their businesses, people are going to work, people driving their cars going to work. But today, President Brandt is closed down by members of the SAPS and also the traffic officers. So this is the situation. It's true, yes, we're expecting that Magashule to sort of report himself to the office of the Hawks here in Bloemfontein before he comes to the Magistrate Court. But to tell us about what are the preparations today to ensure that people are safe here in town, because we know that people who are against, who have been calling for the removal, or rather the removal of Ntate Magashule from ANC, they are saying that they will be here, and also his supporters are saying that they will be coming to court to sort of support him. But I've got with me Ntate Kedama to tell us about their preparedness about today. I understand yesterday they had a meeting with SAPS and also the traffic officers just to ensure that people are safe. Ntate Kondile, just tell us about your preparedness for this morning.
No, thanks, Thabiso. Yes, we had a meeting yesterday. Part of the meeting was ensuring that there's a smooth program today. What we decided to do is to make sure that a few of the important streets around the precinct are closed. One of the streets that is closed, as you put it, it's President Brandt. We know that President Brandt is one of the busiest streets because of the Central University of Technology and so we have made a call yesterday. We have informed our public that there are a few streets that will be closed, like Piet, like is part of Isbega, part of Bakraf Street, and the greater part of President Brandt. The intention is really to also respect members of the community, because if you don't do that, they have a right, and if we practice democracy, we have to make sure that we ensure that all citizens are treated equally, and they can't be inconvenienced or not being informed simply because there are activities that are taking place this morning here.
Are we expecting people from employees at the municipality to come to work today? Because I understand that there are people who were told that they mustn't come to work.
We're not running a Ponzi scheme, so people must take responsibility. It's not a public holiday. People must go to work. Line function managers must do what they're supposed to do. They must leave politics to politicians. People are expecting services from the city. That is why we're actually even making sure that we keep on informing the community as to what could be a possible inconvenience and so. So we cannot allow a situation where people are saying they are not going to be going to work and delivering the services that are expected by the community.
When are we expecting for the streets to be opened?
Well, we cannot anticipate or predict the time at the moment, because we wouldn't know how long is the court going to take. But according to estimations and what we had looked into yesterday, around lunchtime, we think that everything should be back to normal, and those closed that we have cordoned and closed should be open by then.
Dr. Kedama, thank you for your time. Yes, Sakina, that was Tondile Kedama, the spokesperson for Mangaung Metro. As we've seen, one Ndate Chomane, my camera operator here, while he was panning out, we've seen that Carl Niehaus, one of the supporters of Ace Magashule, is here, and also Vusi Chabalala. And we've seen that the beefing up of the security here, the security has been beefed up in and around the Magistrate Court here in Bloemfontein, as we are expecting those supporters, the anti-Magashule, and also it's actually ANC against ANC, Sakina. So we'll see what's going to be happening here this afternoon in Bloemfontein.
Well, thank you so much, Thabiso, setting the scene for us there in anticipation of the ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule's appearance in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court later today. And of course, we're going to get some analysis on this story now. And we are joined by a political analyst, Ralph Mathekga, now to further help us unpack. Good morning, Ralph. Thanks so much for speaking to us.
Good morning, Sakina, and good morning to viewers at home.
So to pick up from Thabiso closing remarks there, ANC against ANC. So what is your assessment of this story as it will play out today? This, of course, related to that asbestos tender contract that was handed out in the Free State, over 250 million rand worth. And, of course, Leanne was earlier in the week speaking to Peter Louis Myberg, talking to that spreadsheet of where the monies went. But, of course, it would seem as though there was some corrupt activity involved in this particular deal. So your assessment of all of this right now?
I mean, Sakina, this is a clear case of a party that has been torn apart by corruption to a point where it can no longer help itself. I mean, listening to your reporter there are two versions of the ANC that are going to court. And at the center of this is that the other are saying that you are not a legitimate version. I mean, the reality is that at the end of the day, the people who are preoccupying themselves with all this, whether you are in a good faction or you are in a bad faction, perceived or real, the reality is that today the ANC is not attending to how to deal with 30% unemployment. So this is an opportunity cost. They are consumed by this issue, and one asks, how focused are they on issues that are really concerning South Africans? High crime, high unemployment. How much time do they have in a day, Sakina, left to attend to issues of the day? Because you listen to the ANC, you can just close your eyes and listen to a senior member of the ANC, and you'll tell which faction do they come from. So you are getting a faction either way, whether you are getting a polite faction or a rude faction, but you are getting a faction, and it all shows that the ANC is experiencing institutional paralysis. It cannot help itself. But the wound is infesting to a point where it is now infecting state institutions such as the prosecution and so forth. I mean, marching to the court is intimidation of the prosecutors in a context such as this.
So earlier this week, the ANC top six met, Ralph, and then there was a media briefing the following day. The Deputy Secretary-General, Jesse Duarte, saying that Magashule had in fact told the top six that he is charged for failing to play his oversight role, which is, of course, very different from what has been put out in terms of the charges that he's actually facing. So are they playing this down? Is he playing this down? And what can we read into that, if anything?
Sakina, it is not in Mr. Magashule's interest to relinquish his position as the Secretary-General of the party. I mean, clearly he has already crafted a defense that says that he's being targeted politically. And from what I hear, dereliction of responsibility, failure to exercise oversight, where it is your primary function actually to exercise oversight, seems to be seen as a misdemeanor here. And I think this is just the opening case here. I mean, when you listen to the Zondo Commission, Sakina, you get a view that the entire project was contrived to benefit other people. It's not just a simple lapse of oversight. So I see this as downplaying how serious this is, where they want it to be like misdemeanor. But I think within the culture of the ANC, Sakina, I can speak openly that you have suspects in parliament. So why should Magashule tread a different path here? There are a couple of people who have appeared before court and they have not relinquished their position in parliament, where their primary function is to exercise oversight. So there is nothing exceptional here, and Mr. Magashule is simply reading them the script that has been perfected. It goes far back to 2007 with President Jacob Zuma.
And speaking of, the assertion that this is in fact state entities once again being used, state resources, state power being used to the benefit of the faction that is in control right now. Let's talk to that, because is there any credence from what you are seeing playing out here, Ralph, to that particular assertion?
I mean, Sakina, there's been a lot of impropriety to a point where I can say that the ANC factions democratize corruption among themselves. And what I mean by that is that look at the PPE scandals. It also involves some of President Ramaphosa's allies, the perceived good faction within the ANC. And this, Sakina, speaks to the core of the issue, that the level of compromise within the ANC is just making it difficult for the party to take a coherent position on anti-corruption. When you listen to one faction speaking, they're actually not denying that they might have benefited. But more often, ANC members say, but why us? Because others have also benefited. Why is there no a similar level of sanction towards others as well? So people are going to be asking about what about those who are allegedly involved in the PPE scandals, which are still fresh. The evidence is still fresh as well. So the pressure on the prosecutor in South Africa is to be seen acting without fear or favor. And acting in the influence of a good faction is still not acceptable. You should act in the interest of South Africans and effect anti-corruption across all factions. And from there, you are therefore killing this notion that you are being used for political machination.
So, Ralph, you look at the by-election results that were announced by the IEC yesterday. You look at what is playing out at the Zondo Commission, all these allegations, and then we've seen subsequent arrests that have been dubbed Hollywood-style arrests by the Hawks. People have been appearing in court, and even before that. And one has to wonder about the ANC and its members, and do you think that these by-election results, with the ANC being the big winners undoubtedly in these elections, are people separating the party from its members?
I mean, this is a very strange thing, Sakina. As a political scientist, I've just been thinking about this thing very deeply. What does it say, actually? Because if you look at the party that has been punished, which is the DA, they've got lesser transgressions when it comes to management of resources. But you look at the ANC, when it comes to impropriety, the name of the ANC keeps coming out. And now you have this by-election coming out. It's almost like politics tossed up on its head. I mean, it's against convention. You ask yourself, what is actually driving this? But I'll tell you what is driving this. Is the mistakes that have been done by the DA, trying to push the party away from the center and make it some kind of a right-wing enclave, whereby for the ANC to win what? It just has to point out to the fear of wide repression. It just has to point out to the fear of some of the right wing. The reality is that, Sakina, when parties that have been nearly moderate as the DA are abandoning center politics, that's what you get. You are going to get local government elections that are just going to be pushing against racial supremacy. And some of the race relations issues are playing into this, unfortunately. It's no longer the politics of substance. It's the politics of ideologies, very sadly.
Well, what does this mean for the internal wrangling, for the battle, as William Gumede puts it, for the soul of the ANC?
Whatever is left of the ANC, Sakina, we don't know which version is going to win. Whether is it going to be the radical economic transformation, and if it wins, in what form will it be? How will it relate to management of state resources? Or we are going to see the other group maybe that wins, the reformist maybe, who wants to push the market. The reality is that the ANC is so divided. It's no longer the center of power in South Africa. It is just part of the multiple centers of power in South Africa. So my idea of the future is just to see the ANC that is just going to be probably struggling like any other party, lobbying. I mean, look internally, they themselves, they don't have coherence on what to do with state-owned entities themselves before they face the opposition. So, unfortunately, the fragmentation of the ANC is what we are experiencing. I don't see any return to coherence of the ANC that is that center of power. But miracles do happen, Sakina.
And just finally, Ralph, this is, of course, also a big moment of reckoning for the law enforcement agencies of this country that we were told were hollowed out previously in the attempt to capture the state. So what does this moment signify for the NPA, for the police, everybody in the law enforcement arm of this particular saga?
I think that it is to a certain extent a moment of pride for them. Some of us, we have supported them. We have spoken openly that we need an independent prosecution authority, law enforcement. You speak to some of men and women in blue out there. Some of them are quite proud of doing this job. And I do think that it's all about sustaining this moment. But most importantly, do not play into politics. Not even good politics is worth playing into. Fair, open, without any favor. That's how to sustain institutional integrity.
Ralph Mathekga, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much. Political analyst Ralph Mathekga discussing the implications of the ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule making his appearance before the Bloemfontein Magistrate's Court today. And our reporters out there, so we'll keep you up to speed with those developments. Right now, let's take a quick break and then we'll bring you the news with Leanne at 7.